Okay, now we're going to get into the professional and situational questions. And we're going to start with Belinda Hearn, who says, I would really like to know bit more about how to work and deal with difficult people. I've tried quite a few methods and I'm coming up short. So I'm gonna stop there because she gives a lot of specifics of things that she's tried. And I think the way to deal with difficult people is to understand what you can control, right? And all you can control is you. And so I think it's a decision about deciding how you want to show up in the workplace and to say, this is how I want to be perceived. And so for me, yes, there are difficult people in my workplace. More so than anything, I feel sorry for them because it's typically a bluster that's on top of insecurity. It is typically stress where they don't have good stress management tools. And so for me, it doesn't affect me as much. Yes, it's irritating. Don't get me wrong. Difficult people can be irritating. But more than that, I just look at it as, what don't you have that you need to navigate this conversation or this interaction a little bit better? Because everybody's always so wrapped up in themselves and, not conscious about how they show up. And so to the extent that you can be conscious about how you want to show up, you're going to be very comfortable in many situations. And you are going to be able to observe things for who they are. So, for example, if you've got somebody at work who's extremely catty, understand that's coming from insecurity. And so, how else would they show up in the workplace? And that's certainly not going to make me feel any kind of way because there's nothing I can do about how they view the world. And there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to stop allowing them or change them from being who they are. They have to do that deep work. And I can't get wrapped up in them not doing that deep work. All I can do is do the deep work myself. And so I wish that I could tell you, oh, I say this and I disarm them. And that is part of it. Sometimes you get what you reflect into the world, right? And I'm not saying that you're reflecting a difficult personality. I'm not saying that. But there is something to remaining calm and measured and as empathetic as you can through an interaction where somebody's just acting a daggone fool. There is something to that will calm that situation. But you're not going to change that difficult person in the workplace. There are other things that you can do, though, to make sure that that is not you're not taking that on and you're not affecting that, affecting your psyche with that, which is some of the things you mentioned, sort of deep breathing or taking a break or just knowing setting yourself up to know what to expect. So if you have somebody who is difficult in the office and you've got to meet with them every Thursday, manage your expectations. Go into that meeting going, you know what, this is not going to be easy. I understand how such and such shows up. So all I'm going to do is do the best to get to the other side of this meeting and get what I need to get accomplished, right? So I know that that's not rocket science. I wish I could give you some big tool or book, or tip or some sort of magic bullet, but it is really about deciding how you want to show up in the workplace, and pretty much anything could happen. Somebody could drop a bomb on my desk, and I'd probably jump back, but like you're just not going to make me come off my chariot, to quote reality TV. Do you guys remember that when Mariah said that? I know she's not the most calm person, but Mariah Married to Medicine. There's nothing you can do to unseat me because I'm a queen and I'm a boss, and I'm not a queen where I'm looking down on everybody, but I am a queen and I am going to conduct myself in a manner that is becoming to how I want to show up, regardless of what you want to do. You don't have that kind of power over me. You just don't. I think about it in the context of my channel, and I am really proud of how positive this channel is. Yes, I get the occasional troll, but it's very clear that that's not tolerated here. So when you decide that you want to create an environment that is a certain way, it will naturally select out the people who don't want to be that way. And yes, you are going to have to interact with these difficult individuals, but when you decide that no matter what they do, that you're not going to let it affect you, and not in a, I'm coming to the meeting, what do you have to say? Yes, you are not going to affect me. That is actually making you show up a different way. But if I'm going to show up as genuine Brandy every single meeting, regardless of what you do, that's a lot of power. That is taking your power. I know that was long-winded, but I really, truly do want to help. Yes, Belinda also says that she is in prayer, and I think that that's a big piece of it too. Every day I begin my day with a daily devotion or meditation or prayer, and I am telling you that will work miracles in your life. I challenge you all to go do research of successful people in business, in government, whatever the case might be. I guarantee you they start their day with some sort of meditation. And it's not a religious thing. It is just a time to clear your mind and set your intention for the day of who you want to be and how you want to show up. I promise that will help you with the person who cuts you off in traffic. You know, it will help you with that difficult individual at work. It will help you with that challenging situation where you just might want to lose your ish, where, you know, everybody gets to that place where they're just feeling overwhelmed and they just want to scream. It will help with all of that. So, Belinda, I hope that that helps. If you have a follow-up question, please leave it in the comments below, and we can talk it through. Mwaka says, I recently got a leadership position in an industry that I have always been in the minority. Girl, tell me about it. Because of my assertiveness, at times I've been labeled aggressive. Thanks to whoever flushed the toilet. That's right. There's real life going on around me. At times I've been labeled aggressive. I work harder than most of my colleagues and still labeled for trying too hard. So let's start with that. Yes, for a lot of us, the women watching this channel, which according to my analytics are about 98% of people watching this channel, you're always going to be in the minority. So that's just something to kind of take as fact, right? And I know that you're not saying that it shouldn't be that way. I think you're starting that way from a contextual perspective. But, you know, that I definitely empathize. It's certainly easier when you are in an environment where others are like you. There are people outside going through stuff, where others are like you. It makes it easier to work. And a lot of men have had that luxury since the beginning of time. And I think as more of us are in the workplace, there will feel like there is more of a release valve for us women and people of color, or even the men who aren't necessarily, you know, the mold of what the typical machismo successful corporate male executive is. And then you say that because you're assertive, at times you've been labeled as aggressive. And I would say if these are one-off comments, then keep doing you. But I would also pull aside maybe somebody that you trust and ask them for some candid feedback to say, you know, how am I perceived in the office? And what would if you had to describe me, how would you, you know, I would start with, I'm really on a quest of trying to, you know, be very self-aware of how I show up here and, you know, how dedicated I am. I come in every day. I work really hard. I know I am assertive, but I just wanted to understand what your impression is of me. So find somebody that you trust and whose opinion you value. Probably a lot of these people who are saying you are aggressive and too assertive are people whose opinions you don't value anyway. And I'm not saying because they're less than or because, but they might be people who just don't want to work, right? And they're saying, oh, why are you so hard on us? Why are you so aggressive? Why are you so assertive? Or it could be, if that's not the case, that you're just in the wrong culture. Every company has a culture associated with it, and cultures are strong, and they are what leads the way people think in a company. And there is such a thing as being in a company that just culturally does not align with how you show up in the world. So my advice to you on that would be to get other feedback from people that you know and admire and trust. And then that's the feedback that you take seriously. I will also say the other piece of that is, if this is something you're hearing over and over and over again, there might be something to it. I'm not going to sit here and go, you're a woman. You know, there's a tendency to say, because I know there's sometimes a tendency that if we do the same things that men do in terms of being assertive or, being, forward, then we are perceived as bitchy or aggressive or pushing. That is a thing. But I'm not going to, I'm establishing that is a thing. That is a thing that bites a lot of us in the behind. But you want to make sure for you that's what that is, and we're not hiding behind the fact that sometimes that's how women are perceived. I hope that my directness is not coming off as offensive to you, but you really want to do some fact finding around that to see if that's true or not. And a lot of times it's because of what I just said, the cultural perceptions around an assertive woman. But sometimes it could be you. So I would just gather more information and from someone you expect to explore that further. You also say you work harder than most of your colleagues. Maybe you're in the wrong place. Or it could be that you work differently than most of your colleagues. It could be that your colleagues are working just as hard. They just work differently than you. So again, figure out what the assumptions that you're making are in your head and determine if these things that you're saying are truth or differences, right? Because if it's a difference, then the question becomes, how can I get the best out of people who work differently than me? Not necessarily I work harder than others. Or if it's truth, then yeah, you do work harder than others. And it is exhausting to carry the majority of the load all of the time. And again, am I in the right job? Am I part of the right team? Am I in the right department? And frankly, am I at the right company? Would be the questions that you want to ask. Yes, anyone who is in a leadership position definitely struggles with this. So she says, do I mind sharing how I deal with difficult colleagues? I think I answered that when I answered Belinda's question. And she says that I'm a friend in her head, and I love that. I love it when you guys say that to me. Thank you. It's an honor. And sometimes when she's getting ready for work, she thinks of what I would think of an outfit. That is awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. But because I'm a friend in your head, I'm not going to tell you the easy answers. And so I hope that you understand that I am saying, take some time for introspective out of extreme love for you and desire for you to get to the bottom of truly what's happening with these situations. And then she also asks about, she also says that she shies away from using designer bags for work because of past experiences, which have not been positive. And then my questions would be, past experiences with who? If you are at a company where top executives would look down on that, or where you want to aspire to be, you feel like that would get in your way, then don't do it. But if it's just haters who are like, oh yeah, I can tell. There are some people who make comments and I can tell that it's out of a little bit of envy. I don't worry about that, because that's just, again, that's more about them than me. Gauge your workplace. Definitely tone it down. Like I said, my big dramatic earrings that I like to wear, sometimes the Louis Vuitton earrings, the Chanel earrings, the big dramatic ones I don't wear to work, but I certainly will wear a double C on my ear, and I certainly will wear a Chanel necklace, but I keep it nice and clean and professional. There is always going to be a situation where when you are at your very best, it really shows you who's for you. I always tell people, and please, viewers, don't take this the wrong way. Please don't take this the right way. It's very hard to be my friend because I have a good life, right? And I have a good life that I've worked really, really hard to engineer. And I'm not saying that I don't have challenges and issues. I had some pretty, dramatic family things happen in 2018. But overall, I have a good life. I have a healthy marriage. I have a beautiful home. I have great kids. I am blessed enough to make a wonderful living. And so not everybody is for me, because not a lot of people can sit in your success and be truly happy for you. As a matter of fact, it's easier for people to sit in your failures and pat you on the back with that. And so I would say as you become more successful, you will truly know who your friends are, because there are the friends who can be genuinely happy for you as good things happen in your life. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any further questions. Lakita Robinson asks how to deal with a supervisor that tends to micromanage or take your intellectual property. So this actually happened to me earlier in my career. I was handed a very difficult assignment. I had to think very creatively about how to do this assignment correctly and effectively, and it wasn't an easy concept to present. And so I also had to figure out how to put it in layman's terms where people could understand the work that had been done. It was the difference between two different types of accounting methods, just to be very specific. And it was really good work that I did, but I worked really hard at it. I presented this. At the time, I wasn't even a manager. I think I was a senior analyst. I presented this to a senior manager who really liked the work and was very complimentary, and then found out after that she had presented that my work a month later as her own and had given me absolutely no credit for that work. I was very upset about that. I was not happy about that. And somebody told me, one, there's not really much that you can do in those situations. I hate to say that. Besides, take note and understand that when you are a leader, which I'm sure that will happen for you, Laquita, that's not something that you want to do. And then also remember that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And so know that that's a signal that you did really good work. And then also take the time to say, taking a step back from that situation, what can I do better? And my solution for that would be to network directly with people who are at a higher level with you. If you can show a degree of professionalism and comfort with people who are at a higher level, they'll start to know where you are, and you can talk about the things that you're working on. When you schedule that one-on-one with that executive or that manager or senior manager or director or managing director, whatever the case might be, you can start off by saying, hey, I'd like to share with you what I'm working on. And you have a chance to describe your own work in your own words to people who are decision makers. And they might not even necessarily be in your chain of command, but they'll say, oh my gosh, this is Laquita. She's really on top of things. I was really impressed with how she presented, how she did that work. And I'm going to think about her the next time I'm in a room with the rest of my professionals talking about Laquita's future. The other piece of your question is about micromanagement. And understand that micromanagement is typically a form of insecurity. Somebody's backing into my driveway. Micromanagement is typically a form of insecurity, and it has nothing to do with you. Okay, let me step back. It may have something to do with you if you have not delivered in the past. That means that it's one of two things. It's you've not delivered in the past and somebody does not feel they can trust you, so it's an issue of trust. So if you would say, nope, I've always consistently delivered, then it is a form of insecurity as a leader where they feel like they have to micromanage and that they have to have the final say on anything before it goes and you see anything, before anybody else sees it. And again, kind of going back to the foundation of what I said and the fact that you cannot change anyone, understand that that's probably not something you can change. I can give you something to try. Try this is to say, when you have a project, you take a stab at breaking it into milestones and then communicate those milestones and what they're going to be over the project to that manager. So if you say, part 1, I'm going to have done in 2 weeks, and I will come in and take you through where I am so far, or, would you prefer that we check in prior to that? And if she says yes, how about once every week? Or he says yes, how about once every week? Then you check in once every week. If you find that that individual is checking in more often than that, you can sort of remind them to say, hey, I know we were scheduled for our check-in, within a week or 2 weeks. Is there something else I can help you with? And say it very kindly and respectfully, not, is there something else I can help you with? Because we said we would check in every 2 weeks. And now you're at my desk talking to me every 2 days. And I don't appreciate, no. no. That's us, head swiveling on the neck, but just be like, hey, is there something I can help you with? I'm about where I said where I would be on the project, but is there something that you would like to add? Something like that. If that doesn't help for that person to back up, again, you cannot affect the way people are as managers, and it might be time to make a change to a different team or a different role as one comes open. So that is why I said earlier in another video, the Q&A, that a pet peeve of mine is managers who don't realize they have a greater responsibility as leaders to tap into their workforce and figure out what works for their teams. That is why I say that, because micromanagement and things like that causes so much angst and so much rework, and is generally not necessary if you have a team that's performing. So I hope that helped with that part of your question, Laquita. Yeah, you say that this person has constant need to assert that she is a director. It's insecurity, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. And you cannot, again, decide how you want to show up. Take her insecurity for a fact. That's just the way she is. And figure out whether you want to continue to deal with it or whether you'd like to do something else. And yet you do note that her aggressiveness has been noted by others. Yes, then that sounds like that's who she is, and you've got a decision to make. All you can control is what you can control. And she is not going to change unless somebody above her has a big come to Jesus with her and says this is no longer acceptable. But frankly, once you get at the director level, just keeping it 100, that's not very likely to happen unless she's doing something really destructive, because somebody thinks highly of her to put her in that position. And a lot of people are very good at managing up, but they crap down, just to be really honest with you. So that's my advice for you as far as that challenge, and I hope that helps. Stacy Magnan, I hope that's how you say it, says, have I ever lost my cool at work? What happened and what did I learn from it? So I just mentioned that scenario where that senior manager stole my work and presented it as her own. And this was earlier in my career. I would say I was probably about 4 years into my career. And yes, I lost my cool. I was in another meeting where I had to present similar work. And I basically started off with, what do you want to know? Because clearly this person has already told you everything about the project. And I was fortunate enough and I was blessed enough where people gave me a little bit of grace in that scenario. Hey. Mm-hmm. It's Bailey.
I was sick. Now I a little feel better.
I'm so glad you feel better. Hey, why don't you have a seat on my couch so I can finish up?
Okay.
Okay. So it was a scenario where I have on this Chanel sweatshirt, and I just noticed those were kind of showing through. So if you were wondering what these are the things to my sweatshirt, where someone gave me a little bit of grace and said, hey, you don't seem like yourself, and gave me some tips to better handle that situation, to say that's not really how you want to show up. So the the takeaway is we've all made our mistakes. The question is, what are you going to do with that information? You know, I could have gone one of two routes with that information. When somebody pulled me aside and said, you don't seem yourself, I'd be like, well, that person, and keep going back to what that other person did that was so offensive, and it was truly wrong. But whenever something happens that doesn't go as well as I planned, I look at me and say, what could I have done to prevent that from happening? How could I have better handled that situation? Because at the end of the day, that is all that I can control. So yes, that was probably one of the few times I've lost my cool at work, because since then I've made a conscious effort to be really centered in how I want to show up. And that is someone who is reliable, consistent, dependable, and that the quality of my team's day or the quality of my peers' day does not depend on how good my day is going. If I have a bad day at home, you would never know that when I come to work, because that's not their problem. You know, that's not fair to anyone else. So I hope that helps, Stacy. Crystal Manner-Smith says, do a video on how to properly handle workplace politics and drama, how to manage personalities in a non-combative, neutralizing way, as opposed to saying, nah, fam, no, fam. And Wymet 2011 asks a similar question. And I wish, if you guys have any particular scenarios that you would like me to talk about, your bracelet is bothering you. Okay.
Something in my mouth.
Okay. Please do let me know. But it really starts with setting your intention on how you want to show up. It also has to do with not. Hey Bailey, why don't you go sit on the couch, babe? Okay. It also starts with being patient and not reacting to everything that you hear right away. I have scenarios where people come into my office and, you know, they might say things that are based on an assumption, and rather than reacting to that assumption, I work on correcting their assumption. Well, no, you know, so as an example, if they say something and it's, you know, an assumption that's just truly off base, I go, oh, wait. So the foundation of your question, or it sounds like the question behind your question is blah, 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 right? And so I think, again, it sort of begins with looking inside and saying, and not being reactive. And the whole not being reactive piece starts with that quiet time, that meditation, that how do I want to show up in the workplace. So I can do a whole video on it. I'd have to think about how to do that. But I am glad to do it if that's something that you guys are interested in. There are a couple more questions. Kathleen Z. Boleno asks, what can you advise to people that have wanted to quit in terms of loving the career he or she is in right now because he or she thinks that he or she is not succeeding and try out a new career? So if you love what you're doing and you're not being successful, to me, you have some fact finding to do. To me, you have to figure out why you're not being successful. Is it that you need some continuing education classes? Is it a technical issue? Is it a dealing with workplace politics issue? I would not be inclined to give you advice about making a change until you told me, you know, okay, thank you. Until you told me these are the things that I'm struggling with, right? And we talked about these are the things that you're struggling with, and then decided whether that's a dead end. But I think just like I said in my first video about my background and how I intended to be a doctor and things like that, after that physics class, I threw up my hands and said, I'm not successful at this. When in reality, I just needed to know that that was something that I needed to get through and put behind me. So if you love the career that you're in, I want to know, is it, you know, the culture of the company you're working for? Is it an issue with your supervisor? Is it that, you know, your presentations are not resonating? Is it issues with your coworker? I really don't know. So there wasn't really enough behind your question for me to be able to say, absolutely not. The thing I will say is, just like you would in a marriage, don't quit a job that you love, a job in a career in a field that you love, without making sure that you've done everything to make sure that there's nothing that you're missing. You want to make sure that you have a good mentor. You want to make sure that you know, you're doing all the basics, like showing up on time and being reliable and, you know, things like that. So I don't mean to not answer your question, but I need more information to be able to help you with this. And then you talk about changing a career because the pay is better. That would be you know, if you are in a career where you're not making enough to make ends meet, then that would be a reason to change careers to something else. But just because the pay is better, there is something to loving what you do that can compensate for a little bit less pay. Yes.
Have a popsicle.
Yes, you can. That can compensate for a little less pay. And so there are, as an example, there are things that I could do that pay better, but I love what I do. And, so it wouldn't be worth that move to me. So I think there's just a little bit more, Kathleen, that we need to learn about your scenario before I can really give good advice and counsel to you. And I take this very seriously. I take these Q&As very seriously, and the fact that I would never ever want to give you advice that would be misleading to you or damaging to you. But I would need to have a deeper conversation with you to understand how to truly serve you. Toy asks, do you have advice on how to change careers? Especially if one is older, an older millennial and may feel it's too late. Girl, if you are a millennial, it is not too late. Let's just start with that. So put that out of your mind. It is not too late. About changing careers, it really depends on what you're trying to do. If it is something that is closely related to what you're already doing, then it may be worth taking the leap. And I would start by networking with people who are currently doing that thing that you want to do and finding out what the requirements are and the qualifications are for being considered for that role. If it's something completely different, then where you might need to go back and get some more education, I would ask yourself if you're really willing to do all of that for the change. It depends on how passionate you are about the change. And it also depends on, in my opinion, how many people are depending on you. If you are already a primary breadwinner for your family, or if you're a single mom or something like that, those changes aren't as easy, and you really need to be thoughtful about making those changes, because there are people who are depending on you for your income and your stability, where that may not be the best thing to do right now. So again, the circumstances around your change really do matter, and I need to know more about that. Then you go on to say, is an MBA worth obtaining if you've already worked for at least 5 years? It really depends. If you are, an MBA can also be helpful in terms of changing careers. So, or changing the type of thing that you're doing. So a lot of people will work 5 years, then go back for their MBA and then do something slightly different, or that's a springboard. That could make it worth it. I would say there's never harm in getting a master's degree if you feel like that can move you to the next level. I personally don't have one, but my scenario sort of played out in a near miss. I was accepted to a master's program, and then I got a pretty major promotion with the company that I was with. And the farther I got away from, and the more work experience I had, which I was probably about a little under 10 years into my career, for me, the less that mattered for my career. But I think an MBA is always helpful. I think 5 years of work experience is actually the perfect time to get your MBA, because you've got enough work experience under your belt to really get value out of the program. So yes, MBAs are valuable. And the more people who are college educated, an MBA can be a differentiator for you in your career. So I would say if you have, I would say for sure go for that if that's something that is a goal for you, or if you need it to move to the next level in your career. Mandy K510 asks, can I speak on how to build relationships within the workplace? I feel like you touched on this somewhat in your LinkedIn video, but if one has a career where it's important to build relationships and network to get things done, what are some ways to go about doing this, especially if you happen to be an introvert? Thank you so much. Hi to all the introverts out there. I happen to be an extrovert, but it is possible to build relationships if you are an introvert. I would say first check out that video, and I will put that on an information card about tips for LinkedIn success. But I would say start by identifying people who are in your field of work who you admire. And I would just reach out and ask for a coffee or a lunch, or if they're not in the same location as you, a quick 30-minute phone call. I wouldn't take any more than 30 minutes of your time and of their time. And the reason for that is you're sort of speed dating. So, you're meeting with this individual to see if there's a connection. Because even though somebody might be doing a job that you admire or show up in the workplace in a way that you admire, that doesn't mean that they will have, that you guys will have a connection where there's a relationship where you feel like you can ask them some of those deep questions that are important for you to know as you navigate your career. And 2, they might not have the time. 3, one-on-one, they might be a jerk. 4, one-on-one, they might be awkward. You never know. There are people who sort of suit up and put on an armor, as executives, and they're very different other places or other aspects of their life or in other interactions. There are some people who are great in big crowds and not great in small one-on-one interactions. So I would start off just by asking for a coffee or a breakfast or a quick meeting to see if that's something you want to pursue. And if you feel like you guys have some sort of rapport and you feel like the person would be open to it, don't like get on one knee and propose and say, will you be my mentor? But just ask if you could set up another meeting maybe once a quarter. I would start with maybe once a quarter or a couple times a year, just depending on how high up the executive is, to get their insight and advice. And if they say yes, that's great. If they say no, don't get discouraged. A lot of people are just too busy, and it's actually more of a service to you if they say no, because it's not their thing, or they just don't have the time, and they're letting you know that up front versus stringing you along and never being available when you need them. So check out that LinkedIn video. I think that has a lot of information, but that would be a place to start on that. And if you're an introvert, I would say it's probably just a step that you have to take to do that one-on-one interaction. And I would say, as far as filling the time, because I know that that's a challenge for introverts. It's like, okay, I have this person now. What do I talk about? And the best way to do that is to ask them about themselves and their career projection or trajectory, and to tell you that story, because that's going to take 5 to 10 minutes there. And then you can follow up by telling them a little bit about your background and experience and your aspirations. So if you are only booking 30 minutes, that will fill the majority of the time and will give you an idea of whether you're able to make a connection or not. So I hope, Mandy K 510, that helps. Okay, so now we're going to round the corner with some more luxury questions. Honey Bunny Jones asks, thoughts on the Real Real and the fake Chanel scandal? Have I ever bought pre-loved? I absolutely have bought pre-loved. I've got a couple of videos in my handbag hauls where I've talked about buying pre-loved. I am selective about the places that I buy pre-loved, and the Real Real is one place where I would never buy pre-loved, and here is the reason. First of all, when they first launched, and I'm not even sure if this is the case right now because I just don't even go on their website, I don't like a reseller that can't even take the time to make sure that pictures are professional and well lit. And a lot of the ways that their terms and conditions were written was to appear as if they cared about authentication, but to take absolutely no responsibility for authentication. So I am not surprised that people are getting counterfeit bags off of the Real Real. I think a lot of avoiding drama in your life is about doing the homework and just going on your sense. Like, do I sense that this is a high quality provider? Like, the pictures aren't even good. It's not about looking harder at the pictures. It's about, they haven't even taken the time to post pictures that would be attractive to sell. So I am not surprised that they would sell fake individuals or fake luxury items. And the Chanel scandal, I think you're referring to, is for Chanel suing the Real Real for selling fake bags. I think that resellers who sell fake bags should be sued. That being said, I think that Chanel's motives are more so to scare people from the pre-owned luxury market because they would prefer you to buy a brand new Chanel bag. I think that they are feeling that their market is a little oversaturated. And so I think that they are strategically trying to unseat a lot of the large and I say luxury in the space of the Real Real resellers, so that they don't have as much competition. So I would say that the Real Real is a website that I have not trusted. I do have trusted resellers, which would be Yugi's Closet, Fashion File for accessories. I've never bought a bag from there. Opulent Habits is another good one. I think those are the three that I tend to stick to. And then also just spend the extra time and money to have your bag authenticated, because those three sites that I mentioned are sites that stand behind their authentication. And if you find that you have something for whatever reason that's counterfeit, you can get your money back. That's never happened to me, but let me put it this way. If you don't have the money to authenticate and buy the bag, pre-loved, you don't have the money for the bag. That's just how I would do that. I think it's a shame that Chanel is suing, and I hope that it's not for the purpose of destroying the resale market, but I understand what their motivations could be. So those are my thoughts. Lastly, I've been asked a lot about my thoughts of Chanel deciding not to make exotic handbags anymore. And my thoughts are that's their prerogative. If you hadn't noticed, I am very much a live and let live type of person. And so it does make me want to get my hands on a couple of exotics. And my guess is that for customers that they allow for customers that they allow to do custom bags, they probably will do exotics. But I am okay with them not making any more exotic bags. There are plenty of other fashion houses that do exotics, and I can either find a pre-love exotic Chanel bag. I know a lot of my essays that help me at Chanel are blasting pictures of exotics because that sense of scarcity is going to make people come out and buy. I just haven't seen an exotic out there that I really love, but that just means you'd have to buy it pre-loved, or you'd have to take advantage of what's already out there in the market. So I hope that helps with that general question that I've gotten in the comments, not necessarily from someone as part of this Q&A. Have I carried the red and black Christian Louboutin, and what are my thoughts? So you are talking about the red and black Christian Louboutin tote, and I have carried that a couple of times. I absolutely positively love that tote. Fits slim to the body, is very durable, sits up by itself, so it's a structured bag, and has a long crossbody strap. What is not to like about that bag? I highly recommend. If that's on your list, go grab it, Gina. Next question, it might also be from Gina, is what do I think of the Lady Dior bag, and would I consider buying one? I have one. It is the medium Lady Dior, and I really like that bag. This was one of those bags that I wish I'd have bought pre-loved. I did not buy it pre-loved because the color that I have, which is a burgundy, is hard to find on the pre-loved market. It just doesn't show up. But if you are in the market for a black one, a red one, pretty much any other color, buy it pre-loved because you can get them for half the price in beautiful condition. But I like it, and yes, I already own one in my collection, but this is one where if anybody was coming to me and said, I just want one of the standard colors or one of the colors that are less rare, buy that mug pre-loved from a trusted source and have it authenticated. Kathy Harris asks, what is my favorite bag? I have so many favorites. It's like asking what a favorite child would be. I already talked about what bag I would keep if I could only choose, and then what the 5 ones I would keep if I could only choose 5. I don't know. It depends on the category of handbags. So I'll try and point out my favorite ones as I am going through my bag collection. That's really hard to say because I really love all of my bags. Which bag do I wear the most? I would actually say my Chanel Jumbo in So Black. It so works for my weekend wardrobe, and it's probably been carried the most times, period. I would say before that, I do own a Louis Vuitton Neverfull, and I used to use that as my work bag. So that would be one. I'm actually thinking of selling that one. And I would say, of course, my work tote, which is the Chanel Executive Surf Tote. And any bags I regret buying. So yes, I do have a couple of regrets. I don't enjoy the boy bag in new medium. I think it's too small to fit very much, and I don't like, the strap is not very comfortable. It's a little sort of lightweight for the bag, if that makes sense, so I don't carry that one very often. But no, I mean, I don't have very many bag regrets. That one comes to mind just because it's such a loved bag in the luxury community. I will say I do love my large boy bag. So it was just, I think, an issue of size and kind of the weight of the chain, if that makes sense. But no, not many regrets on the bag side. Any regrets on a bag I missed? So if you've watched the second part of my luxury haul, the one bag for me that had got away was the Prada gathered leather clutch, and I finally found it in 2018, but I've wanted that bag since 2010. Beyond that, the bag that got away, no, not particularly. So I'm very fortunate. Hamed Khan asks, thoughts on the Evelyn Hermes bag? I like it. It's a very functional bag. It's crossbody. I have the Evelyn Hermes in sort of the, I think it's called Magnolia, which is kind of like a hot pink purple because I wanted it in an impactful color. And it fits a lot. So I think it's a great bag. It's a great casual bag. You can throw it on crossbody. The strap is adjustable. I probably would, if I got another one, would get one in the MM versus the GM because the GM is a big bag. But I do enjoy that bag. The only thing I will say as far as that bag is that I might get a purse organizer, like one of those structure things, because the bag is so long, it's, you know, it's just stuff can get lost in the bottom of it. But I hesitate to buy it because of the perforated H on the side of it. So I don't want the bag organizer to show through. So that's my only drawback, but I think that's a great bag. And of course it's Hermes, so it's beautifully made. And then you ask, what are my favorite cities to shop in? So I really love, of course, Paris for shopping, but my favorite was London. I felt like London had such a beautiful luxury scene, that would be great, that was great. So that's internationally, what I like to do. I would say domestically, Vegas has some great Chanel, and luxury shops. I like shopping in New York City. Those are the two. I also just recently got back from New Orleans, and there was a vintage Chanel shop, and their information I'll put in the description box, but that blew my mind because I've never seen so much 90s Chanel jewelry that was like gold plated and the really heavy, really great stuff. So I told my husband, I said, Christmas time every year, you just need to call them and see what they have because I love a lot of the stuff in the shop. Or just allow me to pick something for myself.
Mommy,
yes.
how many questions do you got?
How many questions? I have 1, 2, 3, and then one other thing to cover.
Oh.
What do you need, babes? You just want my attention and time?
Just want to hang out with you.
Okay. I want to hang out with you too. Okay, give me a few minutes to wrap up. Okay, M. Ree asked bag collection, please. I covered that. Insight on how to build a supportive network in the office besides mentorship. So that is by being accountable. That is by being consistent. That is by being friendly. And then you will gravitate, the same type of people will gravitate toward you. Again, decide how you want to show up in the workplace, and like attracts like. I don't care what you say. I don't believe in, I think opposites fascinate, but I don't think opposites attract for the long term. So like attracts like, and if you are showing up in a supportive way, if you are doing things to support other people, definitely make sure that you do that. You're going to attract the same type of person. Thoughts on friends in the workplace? I have dear friends. I have friends, I mean, I think back to my very first job out of college, and I have friends that have maintained friendships ever since then, that we keep in touch. We might not talk every day. We might not talk, a couple times a year, but when we get back together, it's like old times' sake. So I think friendships in the workplace can be very, very valuable. They're great for also networking, in that, I've had people pass things along my way, just based on them knowing that something was open in their current place of employment. And hey, it was great. You were a friendly and supportive person in that job that we worked in 5 years ago. And I'd love to see you at my job right now. So I think that they are really fantastic. It's fantastic to have friends in the workplace. And then back to luxury, 10 must-haves in a luxury collection. I will actually do a video on that because I think that that is a really great video topic. I also had a few requests come through for videos as part of the Q&A. So one of those requests was different ways to style Veronica beard blazer. So I just want to acknowledge those things and let you know that I've added those to the list. My makeup collection. my makeup recommendations and what's in my makeup bag. Makeup recommendations, I filmed my career professional makeup look, so that is right there. But I will do, I've been asked to do favorites videos. Is that something that you guys would be interested in? I probably won't do every month because they don't change really that often, but I think that could be a nice thing to do maybe once a quarter. And then how to style Balmain blazers. And it would be the same way as Veronica Beard blazers. So maybe I'll just do a blazers video in general, and it'll feature some of my luxury and Veronica Beard. Also I do try and map out what my YouTube videos are going to be. And a lot of times if I'm sort of choosing or in a dilemma, I will put out a poll on the community section of YouTube. So please stay connected to that if you have any strong opinions about what you want to see on the channel. So now that wraps up all of the questions in this Q&A. Now that I've filmed it, I've been talking for over an hour. It's going to have to be broken into maybe 2, maybe 3 parts, but I hope that you found this valuable. If you have any further questions, please leave them down below, and we will use the keyboard to have our dialogue. As always, I enjoy hanging out with you. I hope you found some value out of this video. If you like this video, give the thumbs up. If you would like to have my video show up in your feed every time that I film and upload one, please subscribe to my channel. And if you want to be notified right away when I upload a video, please click that notification bell on the top right-hand side of your screen. And as always, I enjoyed hanging out with you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.